A very good morning to you. Welcome to AM Live this Monday, start of a new week. My name is Olive Burrows, and this morning we'll be delving into governance issues. And the questions we're asking this morning is, one, are the independent institutions at risk of being captured? Those institutions in question, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission and the judiciary. And if so, is the Kamkunji consultative meetings Raila Odinga has called for, are they the answer? We delve into that in the course of the next 2 hours. But first, President William Ruto says he will not entertain any form of, quote, blackmail from opposition leader Raila Odinga and his allies, saying his push for demonstrations was ill-advised. The president has, however, said that the government will not stop the rallies or demonstrations as long as a schedule of the protests is given. Political leaders in the Kenya Kwanza camp, including Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, say Raila's game plan is to force another handshake. What are your thoughts? NTV's senior political affairs reporter, Kennedy Mureithi, with more.
President William Ruto now says opposition leader Raila Odinga's demonstration antics will not slow down his development agenda. Speaking in Embu during an interdenominational service, President Ruto chided Odinga, accusing him of a plot to destabilize the country through protests. According to President Ruto, Raila Odinga can proceed with his protests as long as they do not disrupt business.
Mimi nimemwambia Profesa Kindiki aulize hawa watu schedule ya maandamano, ndio tuwapatie askari ya kuwachunga wasiharibu mali ya watu. Kama wanataka kufanya every day ama every week ama every month, na kwa miaka ngapi watu waambie wanataka kufanya hiyo maandamano. President Ruto saying Raila is offering nothing new with his planned protests. Kenya is not going to be the same. You will not blackmail this nation. You will not threaten the people of Kenya. We are determined to move the country forward, and you will not hold us back. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and a host of leaders from the Mount Kenya region accusing Raila of seeking a handshake with President Ruto.
There will be no handshake. The only handshake William Ruto is interested in is a handshake with the hustlers to give them the hustler fund. Lakini hiyo barabara anaenda tunamjua. Afanya maandamano na rais tunakuomba akubaliwe afanye. Hata tupea askari wa mlinde bora wasiguse mali yetu.
Hata andamane. Hata amefanya mikutano 5, moja Uhuru Park, ingine Kamukunji, ingine wherever he wants to make. Don't lose your focus. Na usimpatie hata inchi moja ya serikali undeservingly.
Kenyans are focused. Kenyans know what they want out of their government. They do not want to be derailed in political rallies, demonstrations, and protests over things that do not concern them.
The deputy president has also told off those questioning the positions in government being given to the Mount Kenya region, saying they have a serious stake in the Kenya Kwanza government.
Rais wetu, tunakuomba tukiwa hapa kwa mlima, president wetu, sisi tumechangia kiasi kikubwa kwa serikali yako. Hiyo mzee hatutaki kwa serikali yetu.
Kennedy Mureithi, NTV.
Azimio One Kenya's Raila Odinga has continued his criticism over the legislative decision to call for the suspension and investigation of 4 IEBC commissioners. Raila maintains that the 4 are not culpable of any wrongdoing. Speaking in Utawala, Odinga remained adamant that the Wednesday public rally to seek opinion on various national issues will go on as planned. With that report is Sydney Chazima.
Amidst increasing pressure and criticism of his call for mass action, Raila remains adamant that he will marshal his troops to Kamukunji grounds. Last week, the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee proposed the suspension of the 4 dissenting IEBC commissioners. The proposal was swiftly acted upon by President William Ruto, even as Justice Nyang'aya One of the embattled commissioners tendered his resignation. Odinga differs with the president's move and instead wants Chebukati out.
Hata mahakama ilisema bwana Chebukati alifanya makosa. Sio. Sasa Chebukati anawachiliwa, wale wanne ambao walitetea haki ya Wakenya na sasa wanatolewa. Mnakubaliana hiyo?
Odinga has promised to spill the beans on what transpired during the 9th August election.
Tumefanya utafiti ya kutosha. Tunajua pale kura yetu iliibua na ngapi. Hivi karibuni ukweli itatoka.
There have been claims of cracks emerging within Azimio ranks, with constituent parties feeling they have been given the short end of the stick in parliamentary leadership positions. A host of Mount Kenya MPs from Jubilee Party have started warming up to Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, further fueling assertions of Azimio splitting. Raila was dismissive of the assertions. Sydney Chazima, NTV.
Right, away from politics, police in Nakuru County are investigating the death of an officer from the Recce squad that occurred on Sunday morning after he was attacked by thugs wielding crude weapons. According to police reports, Officer Harrison Onyuoki Onuonga was in the company of his two brothers when the gang of 5 men armed with rungus and machetes attacked them on their way to their home in Mazembe in Nakuru West. The brothers, who were coming from a meeting, sustained serious injuries and were rushed to the Nakuru Level 5 hospital, but the said officer later succumbed to his injuries. Police now say investigations into the incident are underway. The Special Services Unit officers accused of being involved in the disappearance of 2 Indian nationals and their taxi driver have been released on a 500,000 shilling bond. The Director of Public Prosecutions, Nurudeen Haji, has however said that the officers' DNA samples will be collected. The issue of the samples has come under fire, and it came under fire under the lawyers representing the officers complained that due procedure was not being followed. The case will be mentioned on the 16th of January 2022. I do beg your pardon, that case will be mentioned on the 16th of January 2023. Now, about 4.5 million Kenyans in various parts of the country are facing an acute drought that threatens their lives and livelihoods. The head of state has begun a national initiative to collect funds in order to provide food, supplies and clean water to affected areas, with many Kenyans expected to heed the call. In line with this initiative, the Rotary Club of Kenya, Serena Hotel and Manu Chandaria Foundation have unveiled a similar project seeking to collect funds and amenities that can be distributed to the affected areas. This initiative, which seeks to put hope in the hearts of many families and food in the bellies of millions, will be coordinated through various partners who distribute the proceeds of the collections via the various branches of the Rotary Club in Northeastern, Upper Eastern and some parts of the coast. The initiative seeks to have families in the affected communities get food rations, clean water as well as medical supplies just before the Christmas festivities kick off in 3 weeks' time.
We've put our hands into our wallets and put them into the basket on the table, and already we've raised 5.5 million shillings. What for? To procure food and put it on the tables of Kenyans at this time that are suffering from the ravages of drought.
2 years have been very difficult for us, and it's important that we put some thoughts to the challenges that we've had, and especially now when people are going hungry at a time that we should be rejoicing. So let us check on what we can spare at home and bring it here, and they can be sure that it will reach where it should be and make somebody smile.
Some of them are completely unable even to clothe themselves, unable to find somewhere to put a head to sleep at night, unable to find water to drink, unable to reach that 1 shilling to exchange for a commodity. So anything that is available is being received in kind and in cash.
All right, our conversation this morning is on the question of the capture of institutions, independent institutions to be specific, and are these collective meetings where opinions will be shared that have been called for by Raila Odinga, are they the answer? With me this morning, I'm joined by Professor Gitile Naituli, who is a governance expert. He teaches management and leadership. Karibu sana, Prof. We're also joined by Martin Olo, who is an advocate of renown. Also good to have you in studio with us, as well as Charles Munyui, political analyst. Charles,
Thank
you
you.
are seeking to clinch the Kiamba seat?
Not last time. I opted not to.
All right.
Just sat back, looked at things. Transition is a little crazy at times, so I said no.
All right.
Yeah.
Good to have you in studio
Thank you,
with
my
me
dear.
this morning. So they'll be helping me interrogate the dailies this morning, as well as this question. Capture claims, is Kamkunji the answer? All right, we start with the Daily Nation. And here I can see on the front page, deadly voyage and for hundreds of young women leaving Kenya for the Middle East in search of domestic work every month. Chances that they would give up on the promise of a better life are slim, despite tales of horror and death at the hands of cruel employers. Will the promise by Labour Cabinet Secretary Florence Bore to prioritize Saudi Arabia in safety interventions bring the madness to an end? And here we have the women who went, and the Daily Nation says they went never to return. On the bottom side here of the Daily Nation, Raila, my war with Ruto, high cost of living, lack of ethnic balance in appointments to state jobs, and plan to import genetically modified maize are among the reasons for Azimio la Umoja One Kenya leader Raila Odinga's displeasure with President William Ruto and his Kenya Kwanza administration. Let's take a look at the ticker here. Opinion: withdrawal of cases sets a bad precedent. The rule of law is facing assault from the very people who should be its guardian and protector. The essence of rule of law is that everyone is to be treated equally before the law. Rights, that is... we just refer to my hard copy here, Kaltum Guyo, and that is her opinion. As far as business is concerned, KRA is now ready to refund taxes paid by mistake. New feature on portal allows users to claim monies paid inadvertently. So that is the front page of the Daily Nation. When we look at the very top here, Gachagua Power Plan, quest for Mount Kenya leadership linked to laying foundation for presidential bid. And it appears teachers are happy. Head teachers welcome end to delocalization policy, saying it was a home break. And now that is contained on the back page of the Daily Nation. And this page 2 and 3 cover the headline story. The Saudi Arabia chronicles inside deadly search for greener pastures. The Nation tracked down a few women who worked in the Middle East country and were lucky to be rescued alive. This report I can see by Steve Otieno, and it covers, as I mentioned, all the way page 2 and page 3. So that is a Nation exclusive. You can only find it in the Daily Nation. Now, as far as politics is concerned, in our conversation this morning on page 4, President and Mr. Odinga have been going at each other on social media over our ABC commissioner's removal. ODM leader asked supporters to turn up in large numbers for first, quote, unquote, resistance rally on Wednesday at Kamukunji. And we have a quote here attributed to Mr. Odinga. We have done an audit and have established how our votes were stolen and the number of stolen votes. We shall reveal it all on Wednesday. Raila, here is why I am fighting Ruto. This report by Justice Ochieng. I'll invite my panelists to just make a brief comment on this before I continue with my newspaper review. Prof, is this the time to be holding Kamkunjis at Kamkunji?
No, there is one thing which has come to define Raila Odinga: bad timing and also lack of strategy. You know, there is a lexicon in political science. It says you don't obstruct your enemy when he is making mistakes, but since we don't have enemies in Kenya, we have opponents. So we need to rephrase that statement. Don't obstruct your opponent when he is making mistakes, because they will correct the mistakes. Then what will you do? So what Raila is doing is, if he really believes that Ruto is making mistakes, the clever thing to do, the strategic thing to do, is to allow him to make the mistakes, so that now he can come in, because people have already seen the mistake, so they will be able to come in. So he is not patient, and he doesn't really work with a strategy. Actually, you can ask a very valid question. Who advises Raila Odinga? Because the handshake cost him the presidency. If he never went to the handshake, Raila would be president today. He is making the same mistake now, trying to bring in a mandamano too early, instead of allowing Ruto to make the mistakes and capitalize on those mistakes.
All right. Charles, we've seen KANU and Jubilee distance themselves from these Kamkunji, quote, consultative meetings. Is that telling?
Yeah, it is. And I think, like Prof has rightfully said, this government is extremely new, if you ask me. I think the PS has just got sworn in a day or two ago, and those are the chief officers. They are the people who have the money. They are the authority to incur expenditure holders. This government is actually setting up, number one. So starting these activities will give the president an excuse as to why he's not going to perform or he's not performing. And I think he started talking that language, that essentially what Raila is doing is stop me from delivering to Kenyans. So in the event there is no delivery as expected by Kenyans, the person is going to be blamed for the same is Raila Odinga. And I think that's not good for him. Secondly, there's that narrative now that's going around that what he's doing is purely to push for a coalition government or a handshake, as it were. And you know how Kenyans have a problem with whatever it is, a handshake in whatever name or in whatever mode. So I think, to me, he's falling into that trap. That is where everyone wants him to be. The people that don't like him being in power, they want him to exactly do what he's doing. And someone should notice that and tell him, slow down, allow this government to do what it is doing. Kenyans are not 100% happy with what's happening, so why don't you allow it to happen? If the wheel is okay, the car is moving, why do you want to change it? Just look at, just keep driving. You will be fine. It is I don't understand why you would want to change wheels and engines of a vehicle that is perfectly on the road. So if the route of vehicle is not working as it should, you should be the person encouraging it to go on doing what it is doing. Yes.
No, but perhaps his loyalty is to the Kenyan people, and he says, I cannot watch you suffer while I stand back and do nothing. But we'll get more into that. But the question of the handshake has been brought up by Charles, and also Prof has asked the same question Charles has made reference to, which is, who is advising Raila Odinga? But is it fair when, because Rigathi Gachagua has repeatedly stated that there will be no handshake, there will be no handshake. Has Raila Odinga asked for a handshake?
No, I don't think he has asked for a handshake, and maybe it's not even right to impute that he's doing that for a handshake. However, the question of timing remains important. Is it the right time? Whether he thinks he has a case or not, is it the right time to begin to push in that manner? I think that's an important question. As to whether there's a right to picket and the right to demonstrate, that one is a constitutional right. And I don't even think that you need to time it. You can picket, you can demonstrate anytime. Whatever reasons you have, sometimes even to just express your displeasure. That is fine. But the key issue for me is, he is saying he has done an audit of how his elections were stolen. Is Kamkunji or demonstration the best way to pass this message? Why not bring this message in a public lecture, come and do town hall meetings, show us the maths, show us, the guys, look, this is how it was done. In other words, move with us, with the information you have, in terms of our intellect, not in terms of our emotions. So that we can be able to associate with that. Say, okay, fine, it was stolen. How was it stolen? Where are the numbers? What is it landing to? That can be done in a much more organized way. A piece of paper, a town hall meeting, a way in which a conversation can be held. Otherwise, it will be, again, just one of those things. We'll be told it's hot air, we'll be told it's wild goose chase. But the point is, if elections have been run, and again, we're talking about democracy, results have been declared, you followed the law in terms of what it requires for you to petition, you're petitioned, the results are out there. You can do the rest of the politics around it in a little bit different way, but we cannot keep on saying it was stolen because we had an opportunity to have that proved in a court of law. Now that we have not proved it in a court of law, let us make that part of history. Let professors here write some serious thesis about it, and let us inform the future. Right. But for now, let us, and I agree with my colleagues, why don't you let your opponent make enough mistakes so that he can run himself out of town? Why do you want to be the reason that people say he never delivered?
Okay.
Even the choice for his reason to demonstrate, for example, the Sherera 4, he needs to understand that he cannot stop their sagging. You see, you don't, you have to weigh your chances of succeeding on a certain issue. And then you have also to look, I know my colleagues here are saying that he want to use the emotion. Emotions is very good in politics because that's what can drive the supporters. Yeah? Sometimes the supporters look for no logic. So that one I won't defer him. But then can you win on this particular issue? The truth is these fellows are going to go. Okay, they will go also because the process on which they were recruited was a political process. You remember it was an open interview. Nobody remembered any of them attending that interview, okay? Because they never distinguished themselves in any way, and that is seen in the position they took at the bombers. So Raila can't change the trajectory of what is going to take place here. Now, the other things which he demonstrated on GMO, that's a good point. But they need to let the GMO come and hurt the farmers in the Rift Valley. Because this is about the mess. They have not been hurt. You want to stop the GMO before it comes, and it works for him. So he needs strategists. He needs people with a clear strategy, clear thought. The other thing he needs to, because he's raising the age of tribal appointment, he needs to let the tribal appointment mature. Because when it matures, then he has serious cases to do. He can go to organizations, say this one is ended by this tribe, this is wrong for Kenya. This is not what the Constitution stands for. Now he's not even letting the whole thing, mature. I think he's probably a very good person. Not probably. I think Raila is a good person because he has done a lot for this country. But he needs very clever advisors. He needs people who understand that if you want to enter a room, through the door. If the door is locked, you can also come through the window. But not just bang the door until the door opens. So he needs people who can think in terms of inventing options.
Okay.
That he doesn't seem to have.
Okay, so we have two pending questions as from where I'm standing. Is, again, who is advising Raila Odinga? And number two, mandamano to what end? Right? What's the end game? All right, let's flip over now, and next page is President William Ruto's response, and Ruto accuses Mr. Odinga of trying to sabotage his government and derail development. The president says protests won't derail our agenda. President says he has instructed CS Kindiki to accord Azimio team adequate security during planned protests. I see here a quote, "I want to assure the people of Kenya that the programs I have lined up to change the economy of Kenya must continue, whether they are demonstrations or not." And gentlemen, I will ask you to respond to his response. But first, let's also look at page 6. Mwangaza asks Ruto for help over removal. Sources say members of the county assembly are planning to introduce a fresh impeachment motion. This is now David Mushui. Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza has pleaded with President William Ruto to intervene in her feud with members of the county assembly amid reports that a fresh impeachment motion is in the offing. So it looks like she can't seem to catch a break, can she, in Meru County? Wakili, I see you have an opinion that is...
I'm with the Kawira Mwangaza on this one. I think these people are harassing her. They are not giving her time to settle down. They are harassing her husband. Her husband was always with her when she was campaigning, always playing the guitar for her. So they should leave her alone with her husband. Otherwise, they cannot separate a lady from her husband. If it was a man, they would not be giving him such a hard time walking around with his wife. So why are they giving her a hard time for walking around with her husband? I am with Kawira on this one.
I think if you've been to Meru or interacted with Marians, you will understand where this is coming from. I don't think she's the first governor who is married and who has a spouse in office, as it were. But I think the other ones are laid off a little bit to allow the governor to take charge, to look like they are taking charge, as it were, and to be in charge, fully in charge. And I think this is something that needs a discussion around. But I think, to me, if it's not possible, if it's not working, I think she should not be pleading with the president. She should actually be writing to the president to suspend the county government so that all of them can go home, and then we have a new team elected. If you do that, the MCAs will come talking to her and telling her, stop this, because they know 90% of them will not come back. I think pleading with the president is not the answer. If she is sure the people are working with her, like Wakili has said, there's no need of pleading with these people. You remember it happened in with Mheshimiwa Kibwana, and they settled down and they worked, and there was no noise from that point on. That is the direction to go. If it's not working, if it cannot work, if they cannot approve your CEC members for whatever reason, if they walk out of you when you're making you know, your introductory remarks in Bunge, for the first time they don't even want to listen to you, it means they are not planning on working with you. And a petition will succeed at some point, because you cannot keep on rushing to court, talking to the president, doing this, the other one, because you're telling the president, help me, assist me, go political, but these guys are introducing a legal process. So I think, to me, she should now decide, if it is not working for me, if it's not working for you guys as MCAs, why don't we go home then to seek mandate afresh from the people? And I will not divorce my husband.
I think, my brother, there is a place where she's making a good point. It's not yet a legal issue. It's a political issue. It's an emotional issue. She can appeal to the president and even to the people, so that we just don't let the legal issues take place. But the one thing that I really want you to talk about is that many of these governors, even the president and the deputy president, have their spouses very visible and very busy running around affairs of government. Why is it that we are attacking Kawira for hanging around with her husband? Isn't it a gender issue?
No, but is it really about her spouse, or is that a red herring? Is the issue perhaps about the War Development Fund?
But it's a red herring. It's so soon even for her to have done anything. In any case, who should be able to pass a law about War Development Fund?
I think as Wakili says, just a quick one. Remember, she's an independent governor.
Yeah.
She's not President Ruto's party governor or Kenya Kwanza governor. She's not actually in Azimio as an Azimio governor. So to a large extent, she's isolated. And if politics is playing around over that issue and they want her out one way or the other, I think, to me, that's a reality that she should face up to and appreciate that. If she could be appealing to the wrong person in the first instance, who said that the president wants her to hang around. I think that's a valid question that needs to be asked.
Okay, Prof?
I think what is happening in Meru is not bad at all. Well,
the Meruians
I forgot Prof is here.
I don't understand why there is so much wheelbarrow about it. Yeah? It's not bad. It shows that the Merus are thinking. It shows that they are actually quite active. And people need to understand this. People need to avoid the government of friends. And government of friends is a very dangerous government. It sits down and organizes how to eat you. So that division in Imero is very good. But they should not allow that division to continue. Because what it is, when you listen to both of them, the cleavage for separation is actually not there. Because they have a perception that they don't like one another. It's a perception. So all they need now is to mature up, get together, figure out how to get this development, you want the development fund these fellow needs, because it is the executive still, which has to implement it. All you have to do is go to the Creatum budget. You know, we are still working on the former governor's budget up to June. Find out what was in there for your want. And then ask the governor to implement it, because it is the executive that is supposed to consume resources, and you are supposed to oversight that consumption. So their problem is they have never met. They have never sat down together. That is number two. Meru is a very conservative society, and I want to agree with the prof here that is society, the conservatism, they need to tone it down because you look here, it is very hard for their mind to see a woman with a man next to him here. It should be the other way around in their mind. It's causing dissonance to a lot of them because of that conservatism. But let me say this, Kawira also is an example of what we just said about Raila. Obstructing your opponent when he's making mistake. You see, these fellows gave her 5 warning, according to the lawyers. So it's supposed to be 7 days. So the judge used that one to void the process. She shouldn't have allowed that process to go through. She shouldn't have allowed herself to be impeached because he was going to be impeached that day. Then he go to the Senate. If the Senate confirms the impeachment, then he go to court on that issue alone because it's critical. And then anew the whole process so that they can go back again after they have gotten tired. She didn't allow them to do that. Now they will fix it. They will come back next week after fixing the 2 days, the 7 days proper service. So somehow again we can ask the same question we're asking about Raila Odinga. Who is advising Kawira Mwangasa, the governor of Meru?
I suggest that Prof here offers free services to Kawira and tells his kinsmen not to harass the lady.
If you're from Meru, is it true that yours is a conservative society, that you're suffering from cognitive dissonance when you see a woman with a man here? You imagine it should be the other way around. At NTV Kenya, at Obaros, do share your tweets. I see here below the story on Meru County, having listed for Solicitor General job, this by Cecil Odongo. And if I flip over, I see Gachagwa's grand power plan. DP's quest for regional leadership vacuum after Uhuru's exit is intrinsically linked to laying the foundation for a future presidential bid. This by Macharia Gaitho. And it reads, if I can just look at the first paragraph, when Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua openly proclaimed that he had rallied his Mount Kenya region support base in Parliament behind the successful East African Legislative Assembly bid of former Kieni MP Kanini Kega, he would not have been so naive as to expect the President William Ruto will not take note. It's interesting. Let me just carry forward a little bit. What the Deputy President was publicly affirming, though not in so many words, was that he had mobilized the Mount Kenya bloc within the governing Kenya Kwanza alliance to defy the president and back a candidate fronted by opposition leader Raila Odinga's Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition. Though both Dr. Ruto and Mr. Gachagua have since dismissed talk of a split and insisted that Kenya Kwanza remains united, the apparent rebellion over the Yala vote cannot be glossed over. Your thoughts, gentlemen. Martin?
You see, the thing is, we are in a political society, and we must accept that there is always political organization. And what we see DP Gachagua doing is what I expect of a politician. He is not an amateur around, not in terms of age, not in terms of experience. He's been around. Gachagua, for the record, was my year mate in the university, so I am careful. I must protect him. But first of all, let me say that he has been DO, he has been in Kanu, he has walked around Uhuru Kenyatta, he has now walked around Kenya Kwanza. So he knows what he's doing. So yes, he needs to organize himself. Is there potentially fallout or rebellion? Of course, in politics, there's always shift and there's always movement in terms of realignments and so on. Gachagua must move quickly to solidify the Mount Kenya base because he must declare himself. He doesn't have to be declared. He must declare himself the kingpin and ask everybody to rally him and tell people that it's only through him that you can reach the president. And that's okay, politically. Just like Musalia must do that in Western, rally the troops and tell them, I am your guy. Sasa, now I'm the one who is in front, so anything you want, come through me, I'll take you there. So in terms of political organization, that is there. In terms of realignments, there will be shifts and movements here and there, but by and large, it's too early even to talk about any fallout in Kenya Kwanza. I don't think there's one.
Charles, what do you make of this? Is it too early, as Wakili here is saying, to make anything of this?
I think the opportunity presented itself. Kenya Kwanza called a parliamentary group meeting in State House to decide who becomes the Yala MPs on a Kenya Kwanza ticket, as it were. And Mount Kenya was not represented. There was no one from Mount Kenya region. And everyone was okay with that. The names that were forwarded to be voted for in both houses of parliament did not have a Mount Kenya person. And it is said, it's alleged, that later in the same day, Gachagua organized and decided the other seats, people go for them. You go seek up an election in a constituency, you get voted for by the people. This one, I'll be asked by Mount Kenya region, what did you do? Where is our Yala seat? Not that Kenyans even know what Yala does or the Legislative Assembly of East Africa does, but it's a seat and there's a lot of noise around it. You guys in the media made a lot of noise around it, like it's a really important seat. So what am I going to tell my people? And in so doing, he got a young man, 28 years, Karobia, a seat, and just to rub it in, Kanini Kega, who was assumed to be his political enemy. They would not sit on the same table and have a discussion a day earlier. So, and in so doing, and if you looked at his demeanor shortly after that, a day later, he went to Meru and said, all these guys, mentioned them by name, including Sabina Chege. These are people I'm mentoring to be leaders of, you know, to take over after me. So like he elevated himself above all of them. And now he's talking about the region. And to ensure that he has no issues with his boss, he's saying, I'm organizing the region so that it comes to Kenya Kwanza as a region through me. I think to me, if you looked at what was happening earlier, the president went to Mount Kenya region, got the votes directly to himself, not through proxies, not through anybody else. All the MPs who got elected, governors, MCAs, they got elected because of their allegiance and you know, working together with President Ruto. So Gachagua saw an opportunity, took it, and now he's settling in. And I think what he's doing now is lobbying in the MPs, because the MPs, I don't think the MPs were working with him. Remember, even when he was being nominated by the president to be the running mate, there were issues. It was said he was not supported by members of parliament from the region. So I think, to me, he saw an opportunity. It was presented to him by the president himself, unfortunately, or fortunately. He took it, he's running with it, and I think he's doing very well, if you ask me.
All right.
The timing was good.
We need to take a break, but Prof, I want to get your comment in before then. Is there a vacuum? Is former President Uhuru Kenyatta a relic of the past in Mount Kenya?
Yes, there is one. The Central Kenya is looking for a Linda. It doesn't have a Linda. You see, all the people who got elected, they swept through UNDA. Those people got elected because Ruto had made himself a brand. So they were elected on Ruto, not on anyone else. Now, Gachagua understands one thing politically, that the political dividends are paid and given on earth, not in heaven. So he needs them now. And he is brilliant. He needs to make himself the Mount Kenya leader, and you can see what he has done, actually beautiful. Getting Kanini Kega elected, that was a clever thing. Because after the election, and after the government is formed, Gachagua is telling the Mount Kenya region, this is a government of the Republic of Kenya. It's not necessarily a UDA or a Simio government. So that division within the Central Kenya, he needs to be serious. But Mundavadi did the same, but nobody is noticing. Do you know why? Because nobody expects Mundavadi to have an impact. That is why nobody is noticing that he actually did the same. He collected all the people in Asimio and the UDA and brought them under one house. He told them we must work together to benefit from this government. Nobody is saying that. People are saying what the Gachagua is doing because Gachagua is going to make an impact. You see, he wasn't the favorite for deputy president. He bulldoze his way there because he understands the power is taken. It's not given. So he is taking the power and he is successfully so. So you can expect that he is going to try and build a network because this is how Ruto beat Raila and Kalonzo Musyoka. Given all the years they have been in politics, they have never discovered the secret of getting personal loyalty across the country from individuals. So Ruto built that personal loyalty from 2017, got Kimani Ichung'wah, got Ndinjoro, got all these brilliant young people around him who loyalty was indirect to him, not through any other person. Gachagua is a very good student. He has learned very well, and he's starting early. Ruto started very early. So you watch, Gachagua is somebody to watch in Central Kenya.
All right. My panelists this morning say they're not going to pull any punches. Prof says nobody spoke about Mudavadi because Mudavadi, nobody expects him to make an impact. What are your thoughts at Barrows, at NTV Kenya? See you on the other side of this break.
My name is Michael Olunga. Watch Sport On every Monday, 10 p.m. on NTV.
When France won the World Cup in 1998, defender Lilian Thuram was one of the key players. Now, as France shapes as a contender for the 2022 World Cup, another Thuram figures to offer a helping hand. That hand comes from Marcus Thuram, son of Lilian, and aiming for his own World Cup success.
New Sensodyne Repair and Protect with Deep Repair. It's a huge game changer for me. The science is pretty amazing because it really goes deep inside the tooth and repairs tooth sensitivity. It's going to improve the quality of my life in a big way.
Mama Otis, kuja utuambie. Niko na busene, kwanza mama jana nitako hapa. Hapana, hayuko, hajafika. Ni nini mbaya? Nimeingia juzi kwa nyumba ya mama jana. Wakati ya lunch. Hata sikuwa nataka chakula yao. Nini ikafanyika? Kila mtu akatoka kwa meza mbio. Tunakula kwa sahani. Hata waogope tunawaangalia. Hata papa Janet vile ni mpole. Mpole gani? Yeye mwenyewe amebeba sufuria msema, akajificha kwa choo na mchele. Mama jana tunaye akaficha nyama chini ya pilo. Na supu. Ni uchoyo kiasi gani? Hebu niambie. Baba Janet sio mzuri. Aliniona akinunua chips ya mwitu. Alikibia hata karibu mguu inavunjika.
To get mushene ya chama, dial star 812 star 802 hash. Skiza, non-nation.
On my dark marks, I've tried everything from A to Z, even vitamin C, but hardly any results. Nivea Lumina 630 works from day one, with visible results in just 2 weeks and 71% dark marks reduction in 12. Join the 1 million women already using the #1 Lumina 630 from Nivea.
Did you know shorter is better on YouTube Shorts? Stand a chance to win cash or free data every day. Buy the daily YouTube for 10 bundle and stand a chance to win cash or free data every day. Buy the YouTube for 10 bob bundle. Create a YouTube short with a hashtag shorter is better. Best video with the most likes stands a chance to win weekly cash prizes.
Your flavor, and that's how you inspire us to always deliver the best quality meals made fresh with locally sourced ingredients. Galitos, bold African flavor.
Get the Galitos hot box and a 500 ml Coke soda at just 699 Kenya shillings.
Welcome back to AM Live. This morning, myself and my panelists are interrogating this state of democracy capture claims. Is Kamkunji the answer? With me, in case you haven't yet been introduced, we have Charles Munyui, a political analyst, Professor Gitile Naituli, a governance expert, as well as Wakili and advocate Martin Olo in studio. We were interrogating the dailies. I want to wrap it up quickly so we can get into that discussion proper. And just to finish up with the Daily Nation, there is a notice from Parliament, notification to all members of the National Assembly and the general public, special sittings of the National Assembly to be held on Thursday, the 8th of December 2022, and it is hereby notified to all members of the National Assembly and the general public that this day has been appointed as a day for special sittings of the National Assembly. And they will commence at 10 a.m. and at 2:30 p.m. for the morning and afternoon sessions. Okay, so why are they holding special sittings? A, conveyance of any urgent message from the National Executive and or Senate, tabling of a report by the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning regarding the vetting of nominees to the position of members of the County Revenue Allocation, notification of special motion regarding the approval of nominees for appointment to the position of members of CRA, tabling of any urgent papers, statutory instruments, regulations within statutory timelines, and transaction of the following business. First reading of the statute law, miscellaneous amendments bill 2022, first reading and consideration of any other urgent bill, consideration of a report on the Committee on Delegated Legislation on the Public Finance Management Regulations of 2022, and approval of nominees to various National Government Constituency Development Fund Committee. This appears to be a government that is moving at electric train speed. You know, something happens in the morning, by afternoon, it has been implemented. For example, the swearing in of the tribunal, as far as the four that is meant to interrogate the case against the four dissenting IEBC commissioners. And I will leave that there are only one other story I want to look at in the Daily Nation before we look at an open letter. And this is from the county pages of the Daily Nation. Ruto critics in Rift Valley crawling back to his fold. Here I see Lee Kinyanjui, Moitalelo Lekenta, Matthew Lempurkel, Dr. Swarup Mishra, Ms. Irene Njoki, and Mr. Silas Tiren. They want to be close to power. This report by Eric Matara and Robert Kiplagat. The gist of it is they want to be close to power as they prepare to make political comebacks in 2027. And if I can just look at the first few paragraphs, former critics of President William Ruto and his Rift Valley backyard in his Rift Valley backyard in the run-up to the August 9th general election are slowly crawling back to his fold. The politicians who are allies of former President Uhuru Kenyatta and Azimio la Umoja One Kenya presidential candidate Raila Odinga have declared their intentions to work with President Ruto, and there's a list there, and others said to be reconsidering. It continues. Majority of the politicians trooping to President Ruto's camp to avoid being in the cold for the next 5 years. That is a quote from a political analyst, Steve Kabika, is it? Gentlemen, what do you make of this development? You know, Raila denies that Azimio has he really denied that Azimio has suffered the effects of William Ruto eating into his supporters? What do you make of this, Martin?
You see, Olive, there's a way in which we need to understand Kenyan politics, that people don't have principles. Leadership is not about principles. It's about my interests. Now, if my interests are threatened because of my alliances or my inclinations, I must quickly change it. How do you explain why Atuoli found himself in State House? His interests. It is not about your interests. He'll go and talk about your interests.
It's because of workers.
No, forget about it. And he knows that that's why he was with Uhuru when Jubilee was in power. And he thought Raila was going to be he was there. But now that it's Ruto, he'll go there. Now, everybody in Rift Valley, or rather most politicians who have fallen off in Rift Valley, know that their future is only going to be defined by what they say and what they do around William Ruto, because they know now it's Ruto who is the kingpin. So in this country, you have to align yourself because of your personal interests. Forget about our people. Now, of course, if you say our people, it's because you are also following where they are. For example, in Rift Valley, they now know that Ruto is their leader, so you better be with them, otherwise you will be thrown out. So when you go in there, you might have a chance to fight. So that is our way of politics. Those guys in Rift Valley are doing the right thing. They're saying, how can they take a... You know, they're saying they don't want to be in the cold. In other words, it's so cold to be away from power. In other words, there's no income, there's no money that you can enjoy while out. So the only way you can enjoy is if you come closer to power. Perchance you'll get onto a board and a few other things. Otherwise, you remain in opposition, it's dry. But the flip side of it is this. is Raila seeing what's happening, and is he using a new approach, or is using the same approach? His own allies are actually kowtowing and warming up to Ruto, because it's cold to be in the cold. So he has to find why people don't want to sit in the cold, and that's why maybe he's trying to generate some warmth around himself by making himself relevant. But that said, you can't use the same style, same tactics all the time. And you heard what the president said, that they'll know they don't know, you know. So there's a way in which they are not reading from the same, okay, they're reading the same script, but they're not understanding that the movement, the political movement has happened, the shift has happened.
All right. Charles, then Prof?
Yes. I think it comes back to where we were earlier. I remember I've been here several times defending the former government, before the handshake especially. When the handshake happened, Raila came with his people. They took over government positions, the positions we were meant to have. So I think, to me, that's the point right there. The fact that there is no coalition government, there is no possibility of a handshake, at least with at minimum with the executive. There is not going to be a handshake with the executive. The president is busy getting the legislators, because he knows that he needs them, and they're in parliament already, they are working. He can be able to utilize them when they are there. But in terms of the Raila Odinga coming into government, coming with people to take over a government position, is not happening. So I think, to me, what's happening is that people have realized that there is only one executive that is read by the president, and if you want to do anything, survive, if for lack of a better way of putting it, then you talk directly to the president and his Kenya Kwanza team. The fact that that possibility is not there, of Raila Odinga coming in with his people to take over government positions, positions for which he was antagonizing, he was fighting in terms of the elections, last elections, then I think, to me, people are going to walk away from him. Like my brother said, this is a personal interest at the end of the day. So it doesn't matter how much they care for him, they love him. But for now, for the next 5 years, if you want to move upwards, then you work with the president and his team. And that's exactly what's happening. And now that there has been ruled out any possibility whatsoever of anything else giving Raila's friends access to power, he'll experience a lot of outflow of his supporters going the other direction. That you can take to the bank.
Okay, now, and Prof?
Yes, and Dr. Law, he has described the situation very well, except he has given those people the wrong label. You see, what is happening to us is we don't have leaders in Kenya, because he called them leaders. We have no leaders. Leaders come in the mode of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln entered a society which was half slave and half free. He was ready to lose elections. He lost 9 times, actually, before he won that election. That is, somebody sticking on the principle for 36 years until he was elected. And in fact, when he was elected, the first executive act was Emancipation Proclamation. So he lived because he believed in something. So the Kenyans don't go to Azimio because they believe that Azimio has anything to offer them. They go to Azimio because they thought it was going to achieve power. That is correct, what Dr. Law said. Now they don't have power, they must go to UNDA. They are not going to UNDA because they believe in anything that UNDA stands for. They want access to national resources, and sometimes we don't seek power here so that we actually serve. We seek power for self-aggrandizement, which is exactly what Dr. Law was trying to describe. Now, who is a leader? Okay, where the politicians differ from leaders, because I said we have plenty of politicians, but we don't have leaders. Politicians are always short-term. They are always selfish. And this is why they have promises, not long-term programs. Well, in this country, when we came close to providing a leader was Kibaki. Kibaki proposed a vision in 2030, which, in a sense, if it was implemented, it was going to outlive him. That is a leader. A leader is about long-term programs for society, and sometimes even nothing for himself. So, a leader, where a leader thinks about the next generation, a politician thinks about the next election. And this is what these people are thinking about. So what is happening is expected in this country, because we have been unable to produce a Nyerere, we have been unable to produce a Mandela, we have not produced a Captain Sankara.
Okay.
So we must suffer this deficiency until we wake up and realize that without the other people, we are also nothing. Until that happens, those imperfections will continue and you can't stop them.
Interesting, Prof making a distinction between a politician and a leader. What then is a political leader? But let me just look at some of the feedback that is coming this morning. The Iron of the South, this is Gerard. Steve says, and this is with regard to President William Ruto saying they will not be blackmailed. His administration will not be blackmailed to force another handshake. This gentleman here says if he thinks that way, then he'll be the one to first extend his hand for handshake. And then let me look at another comment here. This is a Kaman who is responding to the same. He says, we are sure you want to work with him. In 2007, you are with him, and I'm sure you want, what you want is to bring him in the government as Prime Minister. So people are not convinced that the other camp itself doesn't want to bring Raila Odinga into the fold. This is Reki. And speaking of the same thing, he says, I think Wakili said it clear, never mess with opponents' moves, sit, watch, and capitalize. We have more goals to achieve rather than being on the streets. I think it's high time these leaders lead by examples. We can have, by example, can we have their children and kin qua street? Exactly. All right, that is what I believe Rigathi Gachagua asked at the time. When before the Mandamano was moved. But this is what William Ruto has had to say on the subject, and I'm getting us into our discussion now proper. And this is one of the quotes. Nimeuliza Professor Kindiki aulize hawa watu Azimio schedule ya maandamano ndio tuwape askari wa kuwachunga, wasiharibu mali ya watu, tujue kama wanataka kufanya maandamano kila siku, wiki, kila mwezi na kwa miaka mingapi, kwa sababu tumewazoea. How does this read to you? Does it read a bit like mockery, Wakili?
You see, there's also something that we need to tell the president, that he is now the leader of a nation. I know that Prof here doesn't believe that they are leaders, but he is the leader of the nation. And sometimes leadership is positional. And this is what I want to put in, that sometimes you may be in a position which requires you to offer leadership. Not necessarily that you are a leader, and that's the tragedy we have in this country. That you can have anybody, even without papers, become an MP and become an MCA, or get a constitution office. They are then required to offer what that office then gives. So, back to the president. He should know that he's the president of both Maandamano people and church people, of Christians and non-Christians, of Muslims and non-Muslims, and they'll all come in their own styles. What he needs to do is stay up there and watch and allow them to behave themselves even as he moves. And that's why sometimes the best form of leadership is not what you say, is what you do. And that's why Kibako would sit there, look around, occasionally make statements that didn't make sense, but he got what he was doing right. So basically what we also want to encourage the president is to let his opponents also do what they know how to do best, which is to oppose, to raise issues. And he shouldn't say it to Mazoea, because that's not the point. He's just begun his presidency. Let him say, we will focus, we will do the right things, and we welcome our opponents to criticize us and make those things better. So that even when they go on the streets, they say, we will be looking forward to seeing the proposals they are having, so that we can incorporate them in our plans and then move ahead. So he must stand up. He must offer the high moral ground and allow others to play down here. It's like what we've just said. What Gachagua is doing is trying to say, look, guys, yes, the time for politics is over. Now I am here. I don't care about UDA Jubilee. Come. I don't care about Azimio anymore. Come. Let us be one people. Let us now forge forward. The president should know that he has a country to run. He was given the mandate. The margin wasn't very big, and therefore he should also know that perhaps those who are not happy could be as many as those who are happy. So anytime he's talking, he should be pleasing those who are not happy, making sure that they come on his side rather than increasing that number. That was my advice to him. We said earlier that who advises these leaders? Sometimes we come to the studio and we also offer advice. Whether they listen to or not, it doesn't matter.
All right, Charles, what do you make of this statement? Nimeuliza Professor Kindiki aulize hawa watu schedule ya maandamano ndio tuwape askari ya kuwachunga wasiharibu mali ya watu. Tujue kama wanataka kufanya maandamano kila siku, wiki, kila mwezi au kwa miaka mingapi, kwa sababu tumewazoea.
I think I want to associate myself with what Wakili has said, that President William Ruto now is the President of the Republic of Kenya. And I think he needs to look at how watu are his people. These are people who, to a large extent, might be actually jobless as we speak. Those people that are mobilized for some of these things don't have a job of work. There's a possibility there's even an inducement for you to be in the streets in the first instance. There's a possibility that there are those that will again join purely for purposes of getting an opportunity to do something illegal and maybe steal from people and do all those things. Those are serious possibilities that are out there. So generally speaking, these are people who are being used to behave in a certain way. I think he needs to appreciate them and embrace them and deal with Raila as the opposition leader as Raila and actually if advise him, talk to him, relate with him, and plead with him to release these people, to allow these people to go to work, because this is a time when people are working, who are looking for an income for the day. It's really bad. Life is not good right now currently. To me, the response was not necessary, if you ask me. And especially when it seems like there's a subtle threat. When you talk about the Interior Cabinet Minister, much as he's the line minister, we know how people feel about that. There was the other one that was there before, and a lot of things were said about him and the things that were doing, what was happening around that ministry and all that. So I think, to me, the president knows that the Constitution in Article 37 provides for picketing, demonstration, like Wakili has said, and petitioning. That's a provision in the Constitution. And again, people who want to do that are well guided on what needs to happen, how you need to notify who, where, and then proceed with whatever it is that you're doing. I think, to me, it should be more of advising Kenyans to avoid some of these things if you have to. Because I think, to me, if it was about throwing words out there, I think the Deputy President was doing very well. And the President should have allowed the Deputy President and maybe the Prime Cabinet Secretary to deal with some of these situations, respond to what is being planned, explain to Kenyans why the cost of living is as it is, explain to Kenyans, like Prof had said, what is this GMO story, and what point do we start interacting with this GMO and if it needs to happen. Explain the Sharia situation, like Prof said earlier, that this is a constitutional legal process that will continue. Other than the court of law, there is nobody else who can stop this process, from happening. And explain that the last elections, 5 years ago, people are making noise about Chebukati being the bad person and was assumed to be favoring Raila Odinga. Today, the same guy is being accused of favoring William Samoei Ruto. And the courts, like Wakili said earlier, have agreed with the elections as they were held and rubbished a lot of things that were presented in court. So that is a position we have in as far as that process of elections of last year, this year, earlier this year are concerned. Explain why you feel that this, because I don't understand it. If the president did not appoint is not the one who appointed the chairman the last time, if the other team is the one that is said to have come in the 4 and then lost, then we are saying even now the process will be followed in terms of paneling, identifying the 7, as it were, because the other ones are going. What is not clear is how will you benefit from this? I think we need to again look at what the court said about some of these things, explain to Kenyans how IBC works, explain all these things about the servers, all those, because people here have servers that need to be open. They don't understand what is in these servers in the first instance. Why do you have 4 commissioners and you've lost? The courts advised on why and how IBC should operate in terms of its administrative role in terms of who is supposed to do the tallying, in terms of who is supposed to do the announcing of the declaration of results and all that. I think that is an explanation that needs to come from government. Even in terms of the legislation that is being put out there, you have seen there are plans to amend the law so that the panel that is supposed to pick the commissioners is changed, so that 2 representatives are removed from the Parliamentary Service Commission to come from elsewhere. So why don't you also, on the same note, also help IBC in terms of what the court said? The court said you need clarity on what the chairman of the IBC is supposed to do and what the other commissioners are supposed to do, so that that ambiguity is clear. I think the government has a role to play so that to ensure Kenyans understand some of these things.
All right, I've taken note of that question that I have given those submissions. The question of, is there reason to fear as far as IBC is concerned? Because that again is something else we're looking at. Is there reason to fear that our institutions are at risk for capture, under threat? Their independence is under threat. But we'll come back around to that. Prof, your thoughts on the statement here?
I think the president is being sarcastic. That is sarcasm. Because the president sees this thing as useless enterprise. And frankly, I think the president does not even believe that the demonstrations will actually materialize. Remember what he said there? He said something against these fellows that probably going to be much in the ears of the Kenyans. He said, what are they busy looking for jobs for their children? We are busy looking for jobs for the people of Kenya. People go and demonstrate for themselves, not necessarily for Raila Odinga. Okay? So this is why we said that Raila should have allowed people to want to demonstrate for themselves. Because calling them now, it may surprise him. People may actually not show up because they have not felt the pinch yet. The pinch needs to sink. They need to see that the cost of living is not going down. They need to start blaming the government for some. Right now, they are still blaming the Uhuru government because this one has not put his feet on the ground. So the president was treating this thing as a joke. Because I think, look, Ruto is probably the first brilliant president other than Kibaki that we have. Okay, you have to give it to him. He sees this thing as a joke, and he's actually treating it as a joke.
Okay. All right. The other thing he said on this subject, before I get into Raila Odinga's tweets on the subject, he said, I want to promise the opposition, Kenya will not be the same. You will not blackmail this nation. You will not threaten the people of Kenya. We are determined to move the country forward, and you will not hold us back. Wakili?
I think I have a problem with that statement, and the point is that those Kenyans who are opposing are equally Kenyans, so you can't deny them the right to express a contrary opinion. I think what we just need to do is to be more accommodating and more inclusive. And you know, the beauty about democracy is that it's not about the quality, it's about the quantity. So it's not how smart or how brilliant, as Professor is saying, we are. It's just how collectively, even in our lack of wisdom, we get together. So governments have been known to be brought down because of their disconnect with the people. I get where the president is coming from. He's very confident that he has it all sewn together. He has a political machine in place. But even in the good days of Kanu, people still disengaged with government. So I don't think that you can underrate, you can dismiss, you can overrate yourself or dismiss opposition. What is critical is continue on a path and pursue the path in such a manner that you will attract rather than disengage, rather than gain disapproval and so on. So what the president needs to do, and it's true anyway, as my colleague was saying earlier, Charles was saying earlier, the government has hardly taken time to settle. I mean, and again, I've said this before, that we have a very bad transitional arrangement. We did elections in August 9th. We have a president who was sworn in earlier, a cabinet which was sworn in later, and principal secretaries that have only come in place. Now, technically speaking, you haven't had any serious government in place because it was patches. Now, those are things we need to talk about. The president needs to tell us what he's going to do to reform some of these things. Some of my colleagues are saying here, IBC might be having a problem. Indeed, IBC has a problem. In the issue of the petition, there were unconstitutional issues. There were excesses that the chairman of IBC was engaging in. And in that manner alone, there are reform issues that we require, not individuals. So I would still fault Azimio for fighting over Cherera 4, and then and we haven't said this on this show, but I have a high suspicion that had Azimio taken over, Chebukati, Guyo, Molu Guyo, and the others would have been on the run. Very likely. It's only that their term is expiring, maybe January, but very likely they would have been on the run. Why? Because for the very reasons that the Cherera 4 are having issues, is the same reason that Azimio would have chased the other three guys. Now that said, we must come back and tell ourselves that institutions are not about individuals. Indeed, now this is a personal opinion. When I looked at the quality of the 4 commissioners and I looked at their submissions, I was shocked that such people were presiding over our elections. I was shocked. So even to go and defend these fellows, I would find it very, 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 very contradictory. Well, I was shocked. And these are the people we have asked to hold to manage our elections for us. So we do have issues, and they are not about individuals. They are about how we care about our institutions, how we actually want to protect. And by the way, I've said this before. It's not about what the Constitution says, independent electoral boundaries. It's not what the Constitution says about the independence of the judiciary. It's how we in those institutions behave. Yeah? Because the name independent is not what we require. It is what we do and how we do it and what we demonstrate that actually shows whether we're independent or not. And what is lacking in this country is that even when you give people independence and give them offices that are shielded by the law and the Constitution, you still find them kowtowing and you still find them working suboptimally, as if they are looking to somebody else to direct them.
Okay.
You know, Raila is very strange because what Dr. Law said here is not really exactly true. That if Azimio had gotten the government, then it would have acted on the 3. On the 3. Raila had an opportunity to act on the 3 after the handshake. The Azimio was in government at the moment Raila joined Uhuru Kenyatta. That was an Azimio government for almost 5 years, because he came nearly March immediately after that election. He didn't. He went to sleep. He went to bed with them. Okay. He forgot that these are the people who messed him up in 2017, and the Supreme Court said so. He would have acted on the Supreme Court report that they did not conduct a proper election. But you see, Raila has one primary weakness. He wins before he wins, and that's how he loses. So for him, after the handshake, he had already won the election, so he didn't bother with his party or his team, because he had already won. So he went through the 4 years as the president of Kenya, waiting for coronation in 2022. Which coronation, of course, now we know did not happen. So there was an Azimio government, which lasted from March 2019. 2018. March 2018, up to the day we had this election. That is when the Azimio government was removed from power. So that's why I'm saying that you need to surround yourself with the people who can think, because our problem is actually we are very lazy thinkers. We simply don't, and our leaders or our politicians really, because I don't want to give them a label they don't deserve. Okay? They like the yes men. They like psychophancy. They like what the Greeks called useful idiots, who can go and throw out the balloons when they need to test waters. The people who confirm what you already believe. They don't like the people who come with an alternative opinion, because you see, knowledge is created by dissent. This is why in the university, if you write a paper, nobody commenting about it negatively, you have written nothing. The paper is only useful because somebody says, no, this thing is wrong. And that wrong, when they prove it, it creates knowledge. So our problem with our politicians is they want yes men around them. when you are an honest person, which is what they should want. So when you look at Raila's history, in my opinion, I think he's one of those people who really like these people, the Greeks, the Athenians. You know, Athenians was a democracy when Sparta was a military state. The Athens, people they hated, was what they called useful idiots. Because useful idiots, these are clever people, quote and unquote, but then they try to read the mind of the ruler, the mind of the person with the power. They confirm. Because they were so clever, they are able to confirm to you, your thinking is correct. You know, let me just give you an example. Any Kenyan who thinks that there's a Hasola fund will succeed in the way it's being implemented is not a very serious person. But I can tell you, they are all telling the president, this thing will succeed because there was one way of making this program successful. Get those billions, give them the cooperative bank. The cooperative bank has established through history the knowledge, accumulated knowledge of dealing with micro enterprises and the circles. So they know exactly who to give the money, who can move the business and who cannot move the business. Okay? When Uhuru Kenyatta proposed that mortgage for senior managers, senior government officials, this is what they did. They put the money with the KCB because KCB has a history of mortgage management. So they knew, and that money is being managed properly. So this money will be borrowed. It will have a default rate more than 70%. Just wait, you will see. Now, the president, a serious economist, as David D., the governor, the minister for finance in Dongo, these are serious people. I mean, honestly, these are probably the best economists the Kenyan can produce. But you think they advise the president that for long-term success, given our proclivity for corruption as people, we are unable to run anything without stealing. Given all that, the best way to have run this program for success was actually to surrender the money to one of the Kenyan banks, like
that's why I don't agree.
Okay, before we get into the Hustler Fund, I will give you the opportunity to respond.
So what I'm saying is our problem. It traces back to our inability to actually be honest with ourselves. Because being honest with your opinion, it doesn't hurt the person you are giving, and the person you are giving does not have to accept your opinion. They don't have, but you have to be prepared to offer it. We are unprepared to offer the opinion on many grounds.
All right, and the unpopular opinion.
Unpopular opinion.
Prof has talked about useful idiots. And Charles, I know I have not given you the chance to respond to this. Martin Wakili also wants to respond to the thing about the Hustler Fund, as you do, Charles.
Yes.
When we come back, because we do need to take a break. When we come back from the break, we'll get your thoughts, Charles, on this. I want to promise the opposition, Kenya will not be the same. You will not blackmail this nation. You will not threaten the people of Kenya. We are determined to move the country forward, and you will not hold us back. Share your thoughts at Barrows at NTV Kenya.
Radiant and Beauty Advanced Care with 5 oils and 5 vitamins, 48-hour nourishment, helps reduce appearance of stretch marks in just 2 weeks. New Nivea Radiant and Beauty Advanced Care for your shade of beautiful.
Big things come in small packages. You have millions of reasons to find them. Be the game. Hum the tune. Up to 60 million shillings worth of prizes to be won, with daily and weekly cash prizes to be won by over 3 million Kenyans, and one of them could be you. Watch, create, upload, buy a daily YouTube bundle, or create a YouTube short with the hashtag #ShorterIsBetter and stand a chance to win. Dial *544# to get your 1 GB bundle for just 10 shillings.
Do you know why they call me sugar? It's because I bring the flavor, the heat, the spice and the vibes on Kenyan radio. When a song plays on my show, it moves from being a hot song to a hit to a classic. When I interview you, you become a household name. And for every brand that advertises on this show, they move from being a brand to the brand. If you want to be seen, felt and heard, you know where to be. This is a place every Monday to Friday on 96.3 Nation FM. It's the Nation FM Drive with yours truly, Anto, Neo, Soul. So kiss, mwah! Every other frequency, goodbye, and keep it right here, 96.3 Nation FM, where good music lives.
The 2022 FIFA World Cup will see the best footballers on the planet do battle. Switzerland qualified ahead of Italy, but they remain one of Europe's most unheralded sides. Cameroon's Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting continues his remarkable career at a third finals. And we take a look at the potential legacy of the first World Cup in the Middle East. The clock is ticking on the countdown to Qatar.
Crystal Rivers Residences, the future of fine living.
Roman was here earlier. He was asking questions about Gabriel. What? All we need is to make Gabriel disappear.
You better watch yourself, Derek.
Now what the heck did I do to you?
Come on, don't play innocent with me, Derek. You've been teasing Gabriel and me a lot, all right? Don't forget I'm still your boss.
Sorry, I just can't help it.
And why not?
Forever, my love.
Go is about thriving, reaching for the stars. It's about exploring new ideas, securely and safely, from the palm of your hands. It's go time with M-Pesa Go.
My name is Michael Olunga. Watch Sport On every Monday, 10 p.m. on NTV.
We know your flavor, and that's how you inspire us to always deliver the best quality meals made fresh with locally sourced ingredients. Galitos, bold African flavor.
Get the Galitos Hot Box and a 500 ml Coke Soda at just 699 Kenya shillings.
Welcome back to AM Live. We're interrogating the question of capture of independent institutions, and is Kamkunji the answer? All right. So, Charles, before we went on break, there was a quote from William Ruto that he will not allow the nation to be blackmailed, his administration, to be blackmailed. Rigathi Gachagua said him, and again, there will be no handshake. But before I get your thoughts on that, let me just get a few comments here. We have B. Castillo, who is Kasbana, who is now responding to this. Ruto accuses Raila of blackmail to force another handshake. He's of the opinion, if it's the way to save Kenya, that is a handshake. From unnecessary political problems. What's the problem? Thinking about it. That's his view on the subject. And there's somebody who had a thought here on Kawira Mwangaza. And that was in response to you, Charles, actually. After this, I'll ask you to come in. You said Mwangaza should write to the president to suspend the county assembly. And this fella here, Issa Onyango, says when you get malaria, you don't write to the mosquito that transmitted the illness. Hawos must be having support from higher points. But away.
I want, pun intended, I want to believe.
Away from this, what are your thoughts on this statement by William Ruto? I want to promise the opposition, Kenya will not be the same. You will not blackmail this nation. You will not threaten the people of Kenya. We are determined to move the country forward, and you will not hold us back.
I think it's a long statement that is feeding the narrative that we said earlier is there. The narrative being that everything Raila is doing is purely to force a handshake. A handshake where he's going to be in government, and a handshake where his people will also be in government. It's that simple. So what the president is saying is that it doesn't matter what you do, we will not get into a point where we allow a handshake simply because you're doing all these things. So basically he has rubbished everything that's going to happen as purely aimed at self-aggrandizement, as Prof said earlier, in terms of Raila becoming prime, whatever it is, and or this or the other one, and his people coming to government. I think feeding that narrative works for the president and his team because, like I said earlier, Kenyans have a problem with the handshakes and the coalitions and all those things that we do after elections that nobody planned for. It's just a sit down of two individuals, and then you come up with this arrangement that is not clear in terms of who is where, what, and then when things don't work, you start claiming it's because this guy came in, the other one went out, this the other one. So I think to me what the president is doing is purely feeding that narrative and reminding Kenyans everything that's going to go down is not about you, it's not about the cost of living, it's not about the chereras, it's not about all these things. It is a way of you guys making noise, running up and down, you know, shops being closed down and everything, and then due to that, I am forced to sit down with Raila Odinga, and then we have, we agree, written and written, that we have this arrangement in terms of the government that we're going to form. So I think, again, Raila is falling into that trap of being accused of being the person who is going to make this government fail. And I think it doesn't, ultimately it will not work very well for him. And earlier I think we talked about the commissioners and all that, and the independence therein, and I know we are coming there, but I think it is not right to imagine that in that independence, the I in IEBC will come from the individuals that are picked, whatever process, including what I think Wakili said about the four and how they look prima facie. I'm just looking at them and listening to them and seeing even what they were submitting. I think the independence of that IEBC and good elections will come from other things, including the kind of technology we deploy, including the media houses. Media did a very good job, and I think I'm wishing next time we are synchronized to the extent that all of you are hearing the same thing at the same time, the same results, the same time, same everything, so that Kenyans will follow you. And before IEBC does its tallying, we'll have known who won, when, and how. And I think that is the direction we must go. We must simplify, like the court advised, the Form 34As that reports the presidential elections. We must do all these things that are being advised, the things that the court picked. We must extend the period the courts has to look at the matters, to hear and determine this petition. I think 2 weeks is too little. We need to have at least a month. And I think the court again pronounced itself on these things. So these are the things that need to happen. The technology. And IEBC is not just about elections, the last day. It's about, from day one, voter education. It's about registration of voters. It's about the register of voters. It's about the technology procurement. How come we print money in Kenya, but we don't have people walking around town with bags of money, you know, cash, because they work in De La Rue? And it's just here. In fact, when you pass through De La Rue, you don't think in your mind that I could get rich by just turning right and walking into this place and collecting a few notes. You don't think that way. But we procure very expensive stuff from all over the world, all manner of countries. The Venezuelans, I don't know the what, the where, and we have to send people in there to go and check what's going on. What is this that makes us believe we cannot have ballots printed here? We cannot have a system where we ensure some of these things happen. If we can protect our money that way, the cash, you know, that cannot be released without due following of the monetary and physical policies, what is this that we are doing? And basically, I'm not saying that we just wake up tomorrow and start printing ballots in downtown Nairobi. But I'm saying we must start asking ourselves, what needs to be done? Because something must happen. What needs to be done? How come in other jurisdictions they are voting from home on their phone? Does it mean we'll never get there? Because I know Prof is banning.
Yes.
What I'm saying is, does it mean year in, are you telling me, Olive, well, our elections are as horrible as they were 15 years ago? They're definitely not. Yeah, remember those days, even the commission we are talking about, whatever it was called, it was a political, people are being picked by politicians. the president and all that, and then they are put together and they give us elections, and the results are validated by the then constitution. We are saying legitimization of these processes, yeah, and we must decide as a country that there are things that we must do, and it starts with the small things that we are talking about, especially the technology. Technology will help. If we have proper technology and we have proper education from day one, from today, we should be knowing what kind of technology are we looking at. What is a server? What happens against the backdrop of data protection laws and all that? So I think these are the things we need to interact with. Instead of thinking so hard about the individuals that are coming in will hold brief for someone. Whether you like it or not, they will definitely be holding brief for this or the other person.
In fact, the law is
Proper, will I allow you a brief rejoin on that one?
You must think about individuals. Because an institution is as good as the individuals manning it. There are people who are so weak that they cannot stand by prescription of the duties offered by the law. They have to deviate from those because they are weak. So you cannot dismiss individuals. But also what my brother here feared from, and he did mention, the only reason why we don't print ballots in Kenya is because there are cartels we must pay. There are cartels we must feed with the election. There are people who have to make money during the election. Printing the ballot in Greece, you can use the government printer here, right here in Nairobi, and print the ballot. All you have to do is get the parties participating in the election, form a ballot printing committee. Go to the printer, mark the beginning and the end of those ballots, supervise the printing, so that they are certified it has been done. We cannot do that. The government knows they can actually supervise that. They can mobilize the public. The commission itself can mobilize the public. They can get these participating parties to volunteer to provide that committee. They will not do that. That will be denying those Kenyans who live on you, who live on citizens' money.
And on that,
so the issue is corruption.
on that issue, Olive, I must weigh in. How many people are on M-Pesa in this country and they are above 18 and they are adults and therefore they can vote? And how many people are in the voters register today in this country? How much money are we pushing through M-Pesa every day and it reaches, even an old woman it pushes the money and it reaches its destination. I send my money to the village, it reaches its destination. It is a very simple process to reform our elections. You can do it on your home, as my brother is saying. We can do it on a tap of the phone. Technology is already here.
Yes.
We have it. What are we doing with ourselves? Why should we be going through such an expensive process at voter registration or at voter education? And then we say, now let's go to vote. And then 14 million people turn out of a possible 30-something million people who are in M-Pesa system who can vote. And then we have a government of minority elected by 7 million. The rest of Kenyans have not voted it. So where is the legitimacy? If we want to make it possible in this country, we should try and learn from India, learn from the big democracies. How are elections done? They do them in one day and you know the results. As we are 7, 8, 9 days, people are working day and night, we don't know the results. Even when they are released, we don't agree with them. So there must be a problem. And part of it is what Prof says, it's an industry. It's a way of making money. And why I don't even agree about people is this. There will be no Kenyans unless we bring them from Mars who will behave differently from the Chireras and the Chemgatis. Yeah. They will either come in because their parties have said so, because their tribes have said so. They will even be called independent and they will not behave independent because they will be saying they are representing their people. So basically we have been failed by ourselves and failed by our own models. We must relook at what we do. It's possible for India to hold elections and have results in a day with their billions of people. And for us with some 14 million, we are still arguing about it. No way.
Look what we do with the voter registration is spending billions. When all we have to do is to manage the Bureau of Civil Registration with the IBC database, lift all the people 18 years, create the register, those 3 pieces of register, the register is in 3 pieces, 4 if you are going to put in diaspora, and then wait for you to walk in with your ID because you will still be required. When you come with your ID, we will identify you and give you a ballot. So we complicate things in this country because we need to satisfy the cartels. We are hired for the cartels. When I'm hiring you, if I know that you will not kowtow to the cartels, I will not hire you. It's a negative not to be corrupt in this country.
All right.
That's why Professor here served in a commission that has never brought us cohesion. He was supposed to bring us cohesion.
We brought the cohesion.
He disagrees on that one. All right. So
we brought the cohesion.
Let's take a look at what Raila Odinga's motive is, and he's tweeted on this subject severally. And then my question would then be twofold, but let's first look at the tweets. All right, so he says, this was on December the 2nd, we wish to remind Mr. Ruto that this country had a system like the one he is trying to reinvent. We fought that system. We brought down that system. We will do so to the one he is inventing now. We will bring it down. Let us all stand up for our country before it is too late. And he's lifted this sign, you know, the sign for, is it liberation?
Yes.
That one.
Uh-huh.
Or a punch.
Okay. Let's take a look at what he continued to say. And he continued to say, I raise these issues because I've witnessed a dictatorship emerge and bloom. I've witnessed self-proclaimed God-fearing leaders preside over the persecution, false prosecution, and even murder of innocent Kenyans. I've witnessed an insecure regime run our economy to the ground. So a day later, this is what he tweeted after taking a break to tweet about what was happening in the World Cup. This is his last tweet from 15 hours ago. He says, we know what they did, how they did it, and who helped them do it. We shall reveal all that shortly. Our meeting this coming Wednesday will proceed as planned. Tukutane Kamkunji, asanteni Utawala. He was in Utawala yesterday. So my question after reading these tweets would then be, what recourse does Raila Odinga have aside from Mandamano? Right? One, because their argument has been, speaking of capture, that Parliament is now effectively captured. So what other recourse? I know you talked about town halls and what you no, town halls and what papers?
First of all, he has to tell us, and that has to be explained in a very clear way. How did he arrive at his figures? What's the scientific method that they use to arrive at these figures? Where is this data? Can it be verifiable? Can we verify the way we've said the election results should be verified? They have an analysis, just like they had a theory when they went to the petition. Somebody needs to interrogate those figures, and they should stand out. That's why these are things we should subject to an academic debate or to a very useful testing mechanism. So yes, they have data. But how different is that data from what they brought with the trucks into, into the court? So there has to be that distinction, and we have to debate it very objectively. Okay. After we've done that, we can then use that for action. So what he's saying is okay, but I will need to see and read, because I've seen tweets from them before, including from their chief agent Kanchori, which said something that was not backed up by any data. So I hope that this is not, again, just those things that they have sat down and put together to please him, because I'm also sure that somewhere along the line, his technical team, his advisory team, his campaign team let him down. I hope this time they're not giving him what he wants to hear. I hope it is true. And if it's true, then if I were him, I would not rush to go and take it to the public. I would take it to the people. Because remember, he has faulted the Supreme Court. Supreme Court has pronounced itself. The danger of what we're dealing with is to actually erode confidence in our entire judicial system. And if that has to happen, let it happen on fairly very sound basis. But remember, you had an opportunity to take this information to the judiciary. You never did. However good the information you have, as long as it's not the information that went to the judiciary, we cannot fault the decision, because the decision was made based upon the evidence and the information that was placed before the court. If you bring some other information later, let's go to the court of public opinion, which we want to do, but how do we want to whip it up? Do we want to whip it up in an objective sense, or in a sensational, subjective sense.
Okay.
And that would be my problem.
All right, and let me just also build on my question. So what is Raila Odinga to do? Again, I will ask, because he claims that I will find that tweet that not only is Parliament captured, but the judiciary, he's made that case, that the judiciary is captured. Now, you're saying there's the sentiment that perhaps this old dog needs to learn new tricks. Yeah. But these tactics have worked for him before. There was a change at the IEBC when Isaac Hassan was there. So even as William Ruto says, tumewazoea, what options are available to Raila Odinga at this point in time? Prof.
Raila has a lot of work to do. I attended a seminar, and one of my colleagues was presenting justifying the reason why actually Raila needs the demonstrations. Remember, he says he has seen all those things during the Moi era. And this colleague said that we're entering. Remember, we have not entered. He used a very interesting language. He said we're entering Moism. Okay? Then he said the danger of the Moism is the Moi we had. Now we have a Moi with a brain. And the Moi we didn't have with a brain. So we must confront this Moi now. Don't wait, because this is a clever Moi. The other one was not intelligent. Now, that mode of thinking is what is driving the actions they want to take. But listen, for people to take you seriously, like I said, you must be consistent. The Raila, we knew, dropped his ball in 2018. He dropped it. So the hustlers, which Ruto has inherited, that was Raila's base. Those who are Raila's people, the only Poloi. Now he dropped the ball. Ruto has grabbed these people. Now, most of these people don't know anything about Moi. This is the work he has to do to bring the history of the oppression which he went to jail for, which he removed, to these current people. That is work. That's why I agree with Dr. Law that what Raila needs is look for some money. Start the 2017 campaign now the way Ruto did. Create the constituency. Have videos. Have seminars. Explain to people what was happening under Moi and is likely to happen even more with the Moi with brain. He needs to label Ruto, William Ruto. He needs to label him. Just the way William Ruto labeled the two of them as in dynasties. He needs now to find a label, and that label must be very unpalatable. But then work now on mobilizing around the label. You cannot say you are going to consult. Who are you consulting? You need to provide the leadership. He is already should have an agenda, and that agenda is going to communicate. It's not to consult. He is going to say what I've seen is the way those tweets, the way they are written. Just communication, but he cannot do it the way you want to do it.
Okay.
The way you want to do it is obstructionist, and the government will resist.
All right, and the tweet you're referring to, I have it here, and he said on December 7th at Kamkunji grounds in Nairobi, we launch public consultations. You're saying, what is he consulting? Consultations with the people of Kenya to brainstorm on the direction the country is taking. We will return to the same venue on December the 12th to continue with these consultations on the state of our nation. But I just want to pull up the tweets on the judiciary before I invite you to respond, Charles. And on the judiciary, this is what he said. Fellow Kenyans, I have been around with you for long. Millions of you voted for me in the last election. We won that election. Millions of you call me Baba. And he went on to say, however, events lately show that the judiciary has been captured. The criminal justice system is collapsing. That is why cases are rapidly being dropped. Criminals are being celebrated and turned into prosecution witnesses. Charles, do you agree with Wakili here and Prof on Raila Odinga's tactics?
I do, and I think he needs other advisors. He needs to change advisors. Let me put it this way. Moi was in power how many years ago? 20 years ago.
24 years, yeah.
20-something years ago. Yeah. So it means the person who voted for Kibaki is around 40-something years. 40 years. And it's a possibility that person did not vote at the age of 18, so it could be around 45. So people who are 45 had most of them don't even understand politics. And I'm sorry to say this, I'm saying this with a lot of respect. They don't understand the dynamics of politics at the time they're going to vote. The first time you're voting, you hardly understand. In fact, there's a possibility you're being prodded by your parents and relatives to go and vote. And you're advised on who to vote for. 45, you know, someone who is 45 years cannot relate with what Raila went through, what this country went through, what Moi did not do. In as far as the coffee industry, the tea industry, education, name it, they will not relate with some of those things. Yeah. But having said that, you know, Raila has the advantage of technology today. He doesn't have to go to any rally. He can just sit in his house back home and say something, and it will be all over the world within seconds, and people will understand where he's coming from. He picks a topic, he will explain it, and everyone will know without necessarily calling people literally to a venue and talking to them on a one-on-one. I think it needs to change tact and appreciate that you have people who have a listening ear and people who can listen to you, but you need to relate with them. If you call a rally, you guys as media people, the bite will be the people who broke into shops, people who beat this person up, the person who accidentally got shot, and God forbid. Those are the issues that we'll be interacting with. Those are the details that the media bring, the mainstream media and other media houses will bring to us. So we are saying he should take advantage of technology. He should take advantage of the ability to communicate with his seconds, with Kenyans across border and the world. He should now bring out these issues, like Wakili has said, on how this so-called judicial capture is working, and why he believes he won that election, and more importantly, why he believes that now the next one he must win, and how he's going to go about winning it. He must now start interacting with what the president is doing and his team, his government, in terms of the specific issues that he has mentioned. What is he doing and what needs to be done better? He needs to appeal to Kenyans so that those that are unhappy with what's happening now can start supporting him, as opposed to antagonizing, quote unquote, what the government is doing. Why don't you tell Kenyans, if it were me, this is how I'd do it. This is what I had proposed to do. I had this fund, it was this. I had suggested that we, for us to stop being hungry, we need to go big on county governments. We need to support county governments to operate this way. In order for this to happen, this is what I had in mind. People start falling in love with you quietly. They don't even have to be in the streets demonstrating and doing placards and all manner of things and disrupting people who basically are frustrated and would want to make it through the day and go home. I think, to me, he must change his style of operating. He must change how he communicates his people. He must appreciate that now going to the streets will not benefit him. It's going to actually make his situation worse. He must change tact, but he must communicate on real issues as they are happening, pertinent issues to Kenyans, speak on topics that are pertinent to Kenyans, on institutions, on groupings, the GMOs, all those stories about GMOs, relate with them, let Kenyans understand what's going on. Even the issues within the president government, we have seen different voices within government. This minister saying this, the other one saying something completely different, being, contradicted by, and yet these are guys who are sitting in the same cabinet. If he can go big on some of those things and explain how the narrative about him wanting to join government will disappear. And then people will start rallying around him, crystallizing around him as an official opposition leader. And they will support him. But if he goes on this way, trust me, he'll be on his own. And it will be very frustrating, because he'll walk into those venues that he used to pack big time without a lot of mobilizing, and he'll find himself with a handful of individuals.
Okay, Kalonzo Musyoka had talked about the formation of a shadow cabinet. I don't know how far that process has gone, because that's what you're proposing. Precisely. You're saying, give us the alternative. Yes. But Martin, again, that raises the question of who is advising Raila?
Precisely, or who is advising the opposition? We have the Constitution of Kenya 2010 in place. Does it really provide for the opposition? It talks about minority and majority, which therefore recognizes that the legislature in and of itself is part of government. So you cannot be saying that there's opposition and there is a government in the legislature. So when you say shadow cabinet, what are you alluding to? You are failing to understand our constitutional infrastructure or architecture. So the point for these guys, even to say that parliament has been captured, is to miss the point. Because then what has it been captured against? You have majority in parliament comprising of a certain persuasion. And you are either persuading them to think that way, or you are persuading them to change their thinking. Which, when this, when President Ruto came into power, he immediately began to look at loopholes and began to align and got numbers. So he was working for numbers, and he wants to have a parliament that can work to its agenda. So the National Assembly and the Senate are constituted by a majority of his people, and he'll whip them to deliver for his government. Now, the executive, of course, is his, and he's whipping it up. Now, you can talk about the judiciary, but he started by saying, hey, we'll give you 3 billion shillings, hey, we are going to confirm the judges, that were whatever. So there is good sentiments going out there for the judiciary. Does it necessarily capture? Does it take over? Maybe, maybe not, because the beauty about the judiciary is that the independence of the judiciary is not the institution. It's the individual judges, the individual magistracies, and so on. So at the end of the day, it's not easy to say you have captured that institution, because judges make decisions, not because the Chief Justice has told them, no. The Court of Appeal makes a decision, not because it has been directed by, no. It is persuaded by the law and the facts and the submissions that you make before it. So it's not easy to say you have captured the judiciary. Yeah, the Supreme Court, you can say it's a political organ, because it is a political organ. And indeed, its main job is to talk about, to preside over petitions. That's its main job. The rest is, about constitutional interpretation here and there. But generally, you can't say you will capture that judiciary. It is a difficult one. Now, in that tweet, there are issues that I have. For example, to say criminals. Now, in terms of legal practice, those people are suspects. So we can say accused persons, we can say suspects, because nobody has found them guilty
of anything.
Yeah? But they have been suspected of many things here and there. And that's fine. So when they are suspects, and we all know that suspects are still Kenyans, they are free, they can walk, they can enjoy their freedom until a court of law finds them guilty and can decide to convict them and sentence them, either custodial or give them fines and so on. So at the end of the day, what we need to see from opposition is also a good understanding of what's happening. But there's something that my friend, the professor here said, which was interesting. You know, when you're living in the age of disruption as we are living, and you're looking at the politics of today, when you look at the hustler politics and you look at the root of politics, and you look at the politics of conservatives in the UK, and you look at the politics of the Republicans in the US, there's something that is resonating. Come against the natural order. Do things upside down. Disrupt it, use Twitter in the most disruptive way, dismissive way, sarcastic way, and so on. So what President Ruto has perfected, which is working very well for him, is to come against the natural order, to come against the known order, conventional order of things. When you introduce this hustler fund, it was not so that it succeeds or that, no. Introduce a way in which people will feel there's money in their pockets. Whether they refund that money or not, at whatever interest, don't worry. People will be happy to have money around them. So the issue is just inject capital, put it in circulation. You promised, you've done it. Move on. You said here he's moving at a very supersonic speed. He says these guys should be investigated. A tribunal is gazetted today. It is sworn in today. That is a speed that is either so good and so well timed or so dangerous and likely to crash a plane somewhere. So if I was an opponent, I would avoid that speed and sit on the side and calculate and see how then I can then respond to this speed. But otherwise, it will knock you off, it will scatter you. And so what Baba is trying to do is approaching Ruto the way he thinks he can approach, he approached Moi. And those are two different times. And we're living with very different types of people this time.
All right.
So
30 seconds each, please. I'm on borrowed time.
Okay. That's what we mean on state capture of institutions. Before the handshake, we under parliament. After the handshake, there was no parliament. Because it passed anything which came from the executive, regardless of how painful it was to the people of Kenya. So a parliament that is not protective of the electorate is a captured parliament, We want to see the parliament protecting us when there is unpopular proposals from the executive. That is why the government is structured the three-way for checks and balances. Parliament, executive, and judiciary.
I agree. Raila should stop exposing himself. I think he should appreciate that times have changed. He should appreciate that he's the biggest defender of the Constitution. So if the Constitution says the Cherera form must be subjected to this process, the other process, allow that process to go on, let it be concluded, and then deal with the results and say, this is not what was intended. This is not what we intended when we came up with this Constitution. You cannot go demonstrate on a matter that is before a due process that you helped introduce through the Constitution of Kenya 2010 that you supported so in a big way. I think that would be a contradiction right there. He needs to look at all these things that he's doing, the way he's doing them, his advisors, and first and foremost, put his house in order.
Okay.
Is Azimio one? Is Azimio there in the first place, or does he want to go back to ODM and declare what's going on? Is ODM, I'm working on other arrangements, and maybe look in Kalonzo Musyoka, call it something else, Wiper, ODM, or something. Drop Azimio, because I don't think Azimio exists anymore.
All right. In fact, there have been complaints from quarters, Kanu, for example. Well, I have to bring the conversation to an end at that point, but that is a subject for another day. Yeah. Thank you, Charles Munyui, political analyst, yes. Professor Gitile Naituli, governance expert, as well as Dr. / Advocate Martin Olo. Thank you so very much, gentlemen, for providing your insight this morning. Perhaps the reason Ruto is moving at supersonic speed is to avoid the litigation challenges that former President Uhuru Kenyatta had to contend with. That's it for AM Live. I make way for Winnie Lubembe with Your World.